Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I'm Callum, 38, and until a few months ago, I thought I had a good handle on what marriage meant. Quiet routines, shared coffee in the mornings, and arguments that never lasted more than a night. My wife, Mara, has always been the kind of person who lights up a room without even trying. She's soft-spoken, a bit quirky, and has this habit of pushing her glasses up her nose even when they haven't slipped. She's worked at the same marketing firm for 6 years, built her way up without politics or drama, and somehow kept that gentle optimism intact. Which is why the night everything changed still sits in my chest like a cold stone. It started with her company's annual winter party. One of those semi-formal events with cheap wine, awkward speeches, and people pretending to like each other. Mara wasn't excited to go, but she didn't want to look like she was avoiding team gatherings. I said I'd pick her up afterward since the venue wasn't far from home. When her text came in, "Can you come now? Please?" I felt something shift. There was nothing dramatic in the message. No exclamation marks, no details. But the word please was enough. Mara never used that unless she was genuinely uncomfortable. I reached the venue in 10 minutes. When she came out, she wasn't crying, but she looked hollow, like someone had scooped out the warmth she always carried. Her hair was a bit messy, and she was holding her coat in her arms instead of wearing it. She got into the car without saying anything. "Mara," I said quietly, "what happened?" She took a breath, the kind you take when you're deciding whether or not you're about to fall apart. Someone crossed a line. Those words hit me harder than anything else she could have said. I kept my voice steady. "Someone at the party?" She nodded, staring straight ahead. Jasper. Her coworker, the guy she had mentioned a few times in passing. The guy who brought pastries on Fridays, who cracked dad jokes at meetings, who seemed harmless. I'd met him twice. He didn't seem like trouble. But harm rarely comes from the people who look dangerous. It comes from the ones who pretend not to be. "He'd been drinking," she whispered. "Everyone had. He came over when I was getting my coat and..." He put his hands on my waist. But not in a joking way. Not accidental. He leaned in too close. I pushed him away, but he laughed and said I was being dramatic. I felt something sharp flash inside me. Anger? Yes, but also disappointment in a world where my wife, the gentlest person I knew, couldn't even attend a work event without being made small. "Why didn't you tell someone there?" I asked, not accusing, just trying to understand the silence she had held. She shook her head. "His boss is friends with him. People were drunk. And I didn't want to cause a scene. I just wanted to get out." I hated that. Hated that she felt that was the safer option. The ride home was quiet, but not in a cold way. More like both of us were holding something fragile between us. When we got inside, I made her sit down, brought her water, and waited until she was ready to speak again. "He didn't stop when I stepped back," she said after a moment. "He tried to joke like it was harmless, like I didn't have the right to say no." I reached for her hand. "You don't need to defend your reaction. What he did was wrong. Full stop." She looked at me then, really looked, with those soft brown eyes that always carried more strength than she realized. "I just feel violated. Not in a dramatic way, but in a way that makes me feel unsafe around someone I see every day. And we're going to fix that," I said. The words came out steadier than I expected. "But on your terms. No pressure. No decisions until you breathe." She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. She looked tired, like she'd aged in a single evening. That night, she fell asleep with her head on my chest, and I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything she told me. Jasper's face, smiling, harmless, twisted into something I hadn't noticed before. I thought about how men like him relied on people being too polite to push back. How he'd probably wake up tomorrow with no guilt, no second thought. But I also knew something he didn't. I wasn't going to let this slide. And when I was done, everyone, including him, would understand exactly where the line was. The next morning, Mara left for work earlier than usual. She said she wanted to avoid seeing Jasper, but part of me suspected she also didn't want me hovering or worrying. She's always tried to handle things quietly, even when she shouldn't have to. I watched her car pull out of the driveway with a tightness in my chest I couldn't shake. I knew this wasn't going to be one of those situations that disappeared with time. Some things only grow heavier when you pretend they never happened. So I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and did something I don't usually do. I let myself get angry. Not loud, not destructive. Just a slow burn of realization that if I didn't act, someone else would get hurt one day. Someone more timid. Someone who wouldn't push back at all. By noon, I had a plan, calm, deliberate, and clean. No shouting, no threats, just truth. And truth, when delivered plainly, has a way of sounding sharper than any raised voice. I drove to Mara's office. Not inside. Not to create a scene. Just to wait until lunch break when people trickled out in small groups. I spotted her through the glass doors, walking with her friend Lila, her posture stiff but trying to look normal. And then I saw him, Jasper, laughing, relaxed, like he'd slept well and woken up with nothing heavier on his conscience than an empty coffee cup. He didn't notice me at first, but when he did, his expression flickered. Confusion, then hesitation, then an easy smile like I was an old friend instead of a man whose wife he'd violated 12 hours earlier. He walked over. "Callum, hey? Didn't expect to see you here." I nodded once. "Can we talk?" He shrugged like this was all casual. "Sure, what's up?" I didn't drag him aside dramatically. I didn't bark or threaten. I just looked him in the eye and spoke plainly. Something he clearly wasn't used to. "I know what you did last night." His smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "You put your hands on my wife without her consent," I said. "You made her uncomfortable. You ignored her boundaries. And you think it's a joke. It's not." People walked past us. Colleagues, staff, anyone who needed fresh air or a sandwich. They weren't really listening, but they were close enough that Jasper stiffened. His voice lowered. "Callum, look." It was a misunderstanding. Everyone had been drinking. "She wasn't drunk," I said. "And you were sober enough to laugh when she told you to stop." He swallowed. He wasn't smiling anymore. His eyes darted around like he was searching for something. An escape route or an excuse he hadn't prepared in advance. "You can deny it," I said. "But you and I both know what happened." Lila had noticed us by then. She walked Mara over, and just seeing my wife made Jasper straighten like he'd been caught stealing. Mara's hand slipped into mine, small and cold. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't step toward him. I simply said, "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay away from her. No small talk. No jokes. No excuses. Keep it strictly professional. Because if you touch her without consent again, I won't be talking to you. I'll be talking to HR, your boss, and whoever else needs to hear it." People always imagine confrontations as loud, explosive things. But silence, controlled, intentional silence, can be far more terrifying. Jasper felt that silence. He felt it enough that he didn't try to defend himself again. He just nodded stiffly. "Yeah, okay," he muttered. I didn't shake his hand. I didn't thank him. I simply guided Mara back toward her building. She was quiet until we reached the doors. "What you did," she whispered. "That meant more than you know." "I didn't do anything heroic," I said. "I just drew the line you deserved to have drawn." She exhaled slowly, like a weight had lifted. "I thought you'd be angry with me. Or embarrassed." I shook my head. "You didn't do anything wrong. Someone crossed your boundary. And I made sure he understood it would never happen again." That night, she curled into me with a softness I recognized from years ago. The kind that only appears when someone feels safe, deeply safe, with you. She told me Lila had already spoken to HR, not to escalate, but to document. Just in case. And Jasper? He didn't quit. He didn't get fired. Life didn't collapse around him like some poetic justice story. But he did avoid Mara completely. He became quieter, more aware of the space he occupied. Sometimes consequences aren't dramatic. Sometimes the world doesn't fall apart for the people who hurt others. But sometimes the right boundary spoken at the right moment shifts everything. Mara healed. Slowly, quietly, and on her own terms. But she healed knowing she wasn't alone in the fight to reclaim her safety. And as for me, I realized something too. A man doesn't prove his strength by being loud. He proves it by standing steady when the person he loves needs it the most.